Campbell, who is the superintendent of Evanston Township High School. Look forward to listening to what he has to say, because this event is a platform for listening. Most of the performers that you will hear, and at least one composer, are products of an arts community that has, over many decades, gradually become enlightened about the challenge of equity in arts education. It is just a fact that children from some areas have access and can afford music education, arts education, and others do not. Challenging this is what many music and arts organizations have embraced. I could tell you about all the things that are happening at Ravinia, Chicago Musical Pathways Initiative, the Evanston Art Center, Hearing in Color, and the Music Institute of Chicago, what they're doing to meet this challenge. But I think it is much better that you see it in the lobby with the beautiful artwork, hear it from the stage, and feel it in your heart. This is a platform for seeing, listening, and feeling. One of the founders of the Music Institute of Chicago once said that music isn't something practiced in isolation by the talented, but rather it is like bread and fresh air. So indeed it is, and I think with concerts like this, the world is realizing that more and more each day. So with that, I will welcome you again to the Music Institute of Chicago and Nichols Concert Hall, and I want you to enjoy this program. Thank you.
How's everyone doing? We'll be playing, my name is YWCA. I'm here with three great friends of mine, Brandon Harper on piano, Danny Perez on bass, Kate Williams on drums, and we'll be playing an original tune of mine entitled Lost.
Public education is the foundation of a strong and functioning society. And in Evanston, we have Evanston Township High School, the storied history of this great school. But they have leaders now who are striving for the ideal or the dream that you can have both equity and excellence. And one of those leaders who became the superintendent of ETHS and District 202 is with us today to share a few words, and his name is Dr. Marcus Campbell.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am thankful to be with all of you today, and I offer my sincerest thanks to the organizers of this event and to the many leaders who are in this room this afternoon who've used your platforms to support our youth and the arts and our desire for equity in our community and beyond. As stated, my name is Marcus Campbell, and I have the privilege of serving as superintendent at Evanston Township High School, District 202. I've been at ETHS for the last 23 years, 22 years, 23 right now. Yeah. I started as an English teacher back in 2001, and I have spent my entire professional career at ETHS. And I'm just delighted to be able to serve as superintendent, having been a teacher in the district for so many years, and now have the privilege of being superintendent. Is something that I don't take lightly. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what happens in 202 and what happens in Evanston. But I'm going to go a bit off script as I'm reflecting back on what we just saw. I am also a performing arts kid. I spent my first opportunity playing violin in the third grade in the orchestra in my elementary school on the south side of Chicago. I also sang in the choir in my dad's church. And when I became 12 years old, and I turned 12, I auditioned to sing with the Soul Children of Chicago. And hey, somebody in here knows the Soul Children. And as a soul child, I got a chance to sing and just to travel the world and perform with artists like Diana Ross and Whitney Houston and Harry Belafonte, just to name a few, you know. And so I went on, loved singing and music so much that I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and got my degree in English, yeah, go Illini, and continued to sing with the University of Illinois Black Chorus under the direction of Dr. Ollie Watts Davis. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about my experience as a kid and as a teenager with having a variety of musical experiences and coming on the stage with all the music in your head and in your heart, and what do you do with it? And I realized that it is the discipline of music that has led me to who I am today as a leader and as a person. Not just the discipline of what it means. You know, music is a discipline. I mean what it means to sit with music, and what it means to rehearse, and what it means to focus, what it means to get it wrong and to keep coming back over and over and over again. So I applaud these young people for the incredible work and the job that they did this afternoon. Can we give them another round of applause? Because that's not easy to do. And I say to myself, I've got to say something about what I know what that's like. We're facing many challenges, and I'm not going to bore you with my comments. We want to get back to what the young people, but we're facing many challenges today in our community, and we live in a polarized political binary where there's an open resurgence of hate and hostility. It seems to be the reoccurring norm. These open acts of hostility toward young Black and brown youth are part of a consistent news cycle reporting of shootings of young men who are simply living their lives, being human, trying to make their way. We also are facing increased global competition, and it is important for us to figure out that how do we maintain as educators and in the field of education, and how do we maintain and adequately prepare youth for living in these United States and to participate in the global citizenry. And technology has also shifted how we interact and the development of our brains, and it has shifted how we live and how we learn. I'm going to share a couple of stats with you about just what we know in education, and I'm going to talk a little bit about AI and get back to the topic at hand. 10 high-demand jobs in 2020 did not exist in 2010. And we're preparing students for jobs that don't exist yet, and that they will use technology that hasn't been invented to solve problems that have not been yet defined. Today's student will have 10 to 14 jobs by the time they're 38 years old. And there are 549,000 words in the English language, which is 5 times more than it was in Shakespeare's day. I'm a former English teacher, I think I said English. And a week's worth of information in the New York Times contains more information than a person was likely to come across in a lifetime in the 18th century, and 3 times more on TikTok. Technical information and is doubling every 15 months. And for a student starting a 4-year technical degree, that means that halfway through that first 2 years of study, what they learned in the first 2 years will be outdated by the 3rd year. And a supercomputer was developed in 2013 that exceeds the computational ability of the human brain. And by 2049, a $1,000 computer will exceed the computational capacities of the entire human race, so they say. So let's talk a little bit about AI. That a supercomputer identified 77 chemicals that could stop the spread of the coronavirus, which could also help doctors prevent infection and develop effective treatment plans. Machine learning development is expected to become increasingly automated. Agriculture, cybersecurity, manufacturing, and other industries are the best examples of this fact about technology. And Google claimed to have created AI capable of designing computer chips that faster than the human brain. And that the AI takes less than 6 hours to design these chips, whereas human counterparts can take months. This is why people are concerned about AI taking over human jobs. And according to studies, the majority of people prefer the sound of a female voice than a male's voice. And that is why we ask Alexa and Siri the question that will be answered by a polite woman's voice. And Sophia, a lifelike humanoid, has been granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia, and has sparked debate with people wondering whether or not robots should have rights. And in 2020, robots have been able to detect when they are in pain, damage, and alerting to the fact that they need and require repair. These robots can also repair themselves. So what does this all mean? We have to continue to work. The work that we do with our young people is the most precious and deeply connected to the work that we're doing at Evanston Township High School. And as many organizations in Evanston are involved with organizations like what's happening today in Cradle to Career, we have already begun some of the most important work by getting stakeholders to the table to coalesce around a vision for community equity. And early childhood education is critically important in addressing the racial disparities from the very start. I'm inspired by the work in District 65 and other educational institutions, and I'm a believer that we can address the education and opportunity gaps in Evanston. We have the commitment, we have the resources, we have, you speaking of technology, reading this thing from my phone, I can barely see the text. I'm having I left my glasses in the car and it was too cold to go out and get it, so here we are. Right. We have the vision, we have the resources, and we can get it done. And my vision for Evanston Public Schools is that we can be a place where race is not the predictor of one's life outcomes and economic outcomes or academic outcomes. We can be a place that focuses on healing-centered engagement where well-being and agency matters for those who have been deeply impacted by trauma. And we can overcome a school system and to be a continuum, to offer a continuum of support and academic rigor and compassion that is conscious of its own bias so that it can repair its own bias and provide the kind of equity that is needed in classrooms and beyond. And it is these stats that we talk about this next generation where AI are engaging. I believe that we have the kind of human spirit and the human ingenuity like Charles Drew, and to have people in our community like Charles Drew and George Washington Carver and Madam C.J. Walker, who live right here in Evanston, and believe it or not, they live in the 5th Ward. And W.E.B. Du Bois talks about the problem of the 20th century, and Randall Kennedy talks about the persistence of the color line. But we have some Fannie Lou Hamers in our community. We have Ella Bakers and Dorothy Heights and Shirley Chisholms and Dorothy Cottons and Cesar Chavez is right here in Evanston. We have Gordon Parks and Marion Anderson and Mahalia Jackson, Paul Roberson, and some James Weldon Johnsons right here in our schools. And let's not forget about Malcolm Little, who walked the streets as a thug in Detroit, and with the transformative power of faith and mentoring became Malcolm X. And with the power of reflection and humility of prayer, became El Hajj Malik Shabazz. Malcolm shows us that people can change and kids can change, and that we can evolve into our best selves with the right conditions are created around us. And when we get to our best selves, we can also continue to maintain an environment where we can stay our best selves. There are scholars in our community who will make an impact, who will make a difference. Right? They may work on the technological advances that we are talking about here today, because there are some Ronald McNairs and some Neil deGrasse Tysons and some Mae Jemisin's, Benjamin Banneker's, and Katherine Johnson's right here in Evanston. There are Albert Baez and Jose Barbosas and Susana Lopez charlatans in our community. And no amount of AI can out-engineer the human spirit. Right? And the amount of change that I have seen in my time in education has been tremendous. And the question becomes, how do we keep going? How do we prepare our young people for a world that is both equitable and gives them opportunity to combat some of the challenges that we face? Some of the human challenges as well as the technological challenges. I believe that we can all agree that educational equity requires racial equity, gender equity, and the recognition that students can carry multiple intersection identities with regard to race, gender, ability, sexual orientation, religion, social economic status, and language that should be seen, supported, and should be safe in our schools and our community. This work requires that those of us who carry out the same intersecting identities can engage in humble inquiry where we use empathy to recognize our privilege and acknowledge where we fit in the conversation. We must confess our personal biases and heal in the manner of which that we can be, from the manner in which that we have all been socialized. And it is only there that we can see how to adjust and address the systemic barriers that that blocks belonging and access for our young people. At ETHS, we will continue to focus on social emotional learning, literacy, post-high school planning, and racial equity. And from 2011 to 2015, we have seen some improvements at ETHS, and we aren't finished just yet. We've seen more students taking the AP exams is up by 30%. White students taking AP is up by 19%. Black students up by 35%. Latinx students up by 78% at ETHS. Students getting 3s or higher, thank you, that's no small matter. Students getting 3s and higher on AP exams, white students is up by 30%, black students up by 98%, and Latino students up by 116%. Since 2013, black students are receiving 3s or more on AP exam, which is up 41%, and it is outpacing, our black students at ETHS getting 3s or more and higher are outpacing every other subgroup on getting 3s on the AP exam at ETHS. That is also no small matter. And that's an external measure, by the way. So we have to continue to talk about race, racism, and the spirit of Dr. King in this program. We have to continue to talk about race, racism, and define what it means to be anti-racist in our community. We have done a lot of work, and we must continue. We must also center the voices that have been negatively impacted by oppression and trauma. And being healing-centered means centering the voices who have been silenced, marginalized, and othered. It means having the strengths-based approach, recognizing our silenced have a voice. Those who have been overlooked need to be validated, and those who have been written off have a story to tell. And we must recognize that they have agency in their own transformation and the transformation of our educational system, which will lead for a better tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Heaven will be Marcia Kazarinsky.
We sing together. Lift every voice and sing. If you don't mind, if you're able, why don't we stand?
Rejoicing, God.
show your appreciation for these performances. Thank you, everyone.